So my theme at the moment, as you may remember, is the heart center. I'm staying with that theme for a little while and exploring different aspects connected with the heart center. And one of the aspects connected with the heart center is that of balance. So we could say that when the heart center is developed, it helps us to find a balance between opposite extremes in life. So, for example, we don't get swayed too much in one direction and then in another direction, or have too many highs or too many lows, but we find more of a kind of balance in our personality, more of a sense of being centered and balanced. And then this applies also in the yoga positions, that rather than wobbling from too much from one side to the other, we can then more easily find that calmness and balance in the yoga positions as well. And this evening, I want to focus on a very specific quality of balance. And this is the balance between, on the one hand, having positions that are very clearly structured, and on the other hand, having positions that have a softness about it. So we could say that a position can be too structured and too rigid, and we could say it can be too sloppy and not have enough structure and be too soft. And neither of those extremes would be good. But what we want to find is a combination of both. We want to have positions that have a great clarity about them, and yet a softness as well. And perhaps one way in which you can imagine this is if you imagine sunlight shining on an object, maybe a plant, say a stem of grass or something, and it could be shining on that object and giving it a very clear outline, because the sunlight is shining on it. It almost coats it with a sort of golden sheen around the outside so that you can see its outline very, very clearly. But at the same time, that sunlight is not too harsh, but it's giving it maybe a kind of warm yellow kind of color, so it can give it a kind of softness as well. So we can have something that can be very clear and yet at the same time quite soft. And we can think of our yoga positions happening in this way. They can have a clarity, but they can still have a gentleness about it. And that's when they have the quality of the heart center to them. So we're going to focus on that as our theme for this evening. And this kind of balance can come around in a very particular way. It can come around when we have a clear mental picture of what it is we're going to do. If we're too willful, the position might be too hard. If we're not willful enough, it can be too soft. But if we have a clear picture, then the willfulness doesn't have to come in the same way. The will be guided in just the right kind of way by that picture. And then we can find that right balance between softness and structure. So I'd like to start with the circle of the heart, which I think is a very good exercise for bringing in that very specific combination of qualities. Let's come into a kneeling position. So you can kneel up if that's more comfortable, or you can kneel down, which might be a little bit more relaxing if it's comfortable for you. And just have a good uprightness with your spine. And let's start by making a very vivid picture of our circle. So it's sitting there in front of us, almost glistening with aliveness. Just letting the breath naturally come and go. And take your hands up to the top of the circle. And let the picture of the circle guide your movement. So when the circle is really there, just very naturally feel its edges. It can have a clarity and yet a softness to it. It's gentle and yet clear. The thought is always present, the mental picture of the circle, that sense that the circle is really living there in front of you. And the arm movement then can find its way with this natural clarity and gentleness. And then rest your hands in your lap. So we'll come up to a standing position and we'll come to the sun prayer. So for the sun prayer, we'll take the thought that we have a good energy flow through the spine. From the solar plexus, the energy flows through the spine and up into the space. We can picture that. And if we have that as a really clear picture, it will help the movement to find a good structure, and yet at the same time it can flow with a gentleness as well. So let's take the feet together and take the hands together. And take the arms up into a good flowing length. And then come forwards, taking the hands by your feet, looking down. Take your right foot back, forming a good base with your legs. Take the arms up and grow through the spine, arms and hands. And then come into the plank. Take the knees, chest and forehead down. Come into the Cobra. Push into downward dog with a good length. And take the right foot forward. Coming up into the half moon. Take the other foot forward. And then comes flowing up once again. And take the hands by your sides. Hands together. Growing upwards. And then come down, looking down to the ground. Left foot back. Opening up. And the plank. Knees and chest and forehead down. Coming into the Cobra. Push into downward dog. Left foot forward. Coming up. And the right foot forward. Coming up once again. And take the hands down. So one of the things that can make our movements seem too hard is if we focus too much on our body and not enough on the movement that is happening within the body. So the sun prayer is an exercise which very much the element of movement is very predominant. We're constantly flowing from one movement to the other. And also we can think that during these movements, the spine is constantly lengthening. With every movement where we grow, we can think of the spine getting longer in one direction, longer in the other direction. So there's always a sense of movement. So let's try and think of this movement. Let's really keep that picture in our mind, that it's not just one position, then another position, then another position, but more it's a movement of lengthening, another movement of lengthening. And this way, I think we can find less hardness and fixedness, more this bringing the balance more towards something that is a bit more fluid in the exercise. So let's do another round. Hands together. And a fluid flowing up and lengthening and coming forwards and lengthening up through the legs and down through the spine. Right foot back, growing into the legs, flowing, streaming up through the back of the arms, and then coming into the plank. Take the knees, chest and forehead down, slide along the ground, curling into the cobra. Pushing into the downward dog, making a good length right the way up through. Right foot forward, growing into the legs, streaming upwards. Other foot forward. And then come up once again and grow. Lengthen upwards. And take the hands by your sides. Hands together. Coming up, and now we build up the stretch, growing up. Take the hands down and lengthen towards the ground. Left foot back, growing between the legs and lengthening up through the spine and the arms. Coming into the plank. Knees, chest and forehead down. Curling into the cobra. Pushing into the triangle. Long back. Left foot forward. Growing upwards through the spine. Right foot forward. And coming up once again and grow. And take the hands down. Good. Let's just take a pause and take a breath. Well, let's do another round. Hands together, and let's allow that movement to grow even longer, streaming right up high and then coming right the way down forwards, long legs and long back, right foot back, good base, and streaming right up through the spine and arms, and then come into the plank. Take the knees, chest and forehead down, sliding along the ground, curling into the cobra. Pushing into the downward dog. Take the right foot forward. Good base. Coming actively up, streaming right up high. Take the other foot forward. Coming up once again and grow. Lengthening right up. And take the hands down. Hands together. Stretching right up high. Come down, looking forwards. Left foot back. Right the way up, streaming up. Plank. Knees, chest and forehead down. Cobra. Good long back in the triangle. Left foot forward. Growing right up high. And the other foot forward. And coming up once again and grow. And lengthen. And take the hands down. Let's come into the scales. Scales is another one where we can then have a good long line of streaming out. Let's come into the diagonal line first. So we have a good structure with this one, and yet at the same time a sense of flow, a sense of movement, as I've just described. Let's come into this position. So you're streaming through the back of your leg and upwards through the spine, right up through the arms. Your fingers are coming just together like that at the top, lengthening up. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. So what we can build up is this picture of growing long in both directions, a lengthening form. It has a streaming quality to it. We really picture that. Letting the breath flow freely, so we have that good active quality and yet a free quality, a well-formed quality and yet freedom in the breath. Come back again. Let's come into the actual scales. Take a good step. So we want a really good lengthening form, Come right into the position. Streaming outwards, growing longer and longer. And yet at the same time keeping the breath free. The breath never becomes fixed. Return again. And take the foot down. Finishing off with a good length and hands by your sides. Other side. Take a step forward. Let the breath flow. Grow into the back leg. Streaming out forwards. Length, form, and yes, free breath. And return again, take the foot forwards. And take it down. Grow up a little bit more. And take the hands by your sides. Just roll down and hang forwards. And then come back up once again. So we can do another variation of the scales. And this one we can, well, it's the same position, but I want to do it starting in a different way. And to bring in more of this soft quality, we can bring a really soft movement of the arms into the position, even though the body itself is quite active. So I'll just show you. We can start by coming into the swallow, and we can grow really actively through into the legs, into that, well, the back leg. But then we take the arms gliding gently forwards like this into that forward movement. So we have a sense that everything has a bit of that quality of freedom. Doesn't remain too fixed and hard, but yet is still well formed. So we'd like to take one foot forward, come back into the swallow, growing actively back into your back leg, and then gliding quite lightly forwards with the arms in a free way, and now streaming out far into the scales. Come back again. Take the foot forward. Take the foot down and grow up a little bit more. And take the hands down. And then once again on the other side. So a good step. Come into the swallow. Gliding forwards with the arms, streaming right through, good length, breath flowing, and then come up once again, taking the foot forward, foot down, and a graceful movement right up, a good clear form but without fixedness or hardness. Take the hands down and once again roll down and hang forwards. And come back up once again. And let's come to the standing head to knee position. So you know this exercise well. We've got a lengthening up through the backs of the legs, and we've got a lengthening down and out through the spine. It's really important that the fingers keep that softness. There's no fixing or attaching the fingers to the ground, but keeping that softness, and once again that sense of flow, always a sense of movement and length. So when you're ready, then take your feet and legs together and take the arms lightly above the head. We want the movement to be clearly formed and yet with a softness to it. When you're ready, you can then lengthen up through the backs of the legs and take your back right the way down and flow outwards through the spine. Keep letting the breath flow. Think of that movement of length through your spine, length out through the arms, and the fingertips staying light. We're forming a really good structure of lengthening up through the legs, down and out through the spine. Relax down again, and then come right the way back up to the standing half moon, and take the hands down. I mentioned earlier on when we did the sun prayer how working in this way we can always have a sense of the body being a little bit fluid. The movement never gets fixed or stuck. And I think this is something we can think about with this position as well. I'd like to demonstrate again and see if you can see this happening, that the body continues to grow. When I come into the position, I'm picturing a flowing stream through the spine, bringing my spine longer and longer, so it's never fixed. It's well formed, but it's not fixed. It's always ready to grow a little bit longer. So if there's a fluid movement right through the spine. Let's do it one more time. Take your feet and legs together, drawing them in together, gathering your energy at the second center, taking the arms right up high, free breath. Come down into the forward bend, flowing through the spine, lengthening up through the backs of the legs, out through the spine, as if you continue to grow longer, right out through the spine, through the arms, to the fingertips, beyond, face relaxed, breath flowing. Then relax down again. And come right the way back up to the standing half moon, lengthening right the way up, breath flowing, and take the hands by your sides. So let's come to the cosmic prayer. So the cosmic prayer, you can stay standing. I'm going to kneel down. And it's a movement where each gesture needs to be very clearly formed, but not in a fixed way, that they're too hard, but that if we can have a really clear mental picture, a really clear thought of each movement, then we will find that very naturally these gestures take a harmonious form. They become well formed and yet have the softness. So each of these gestures has a very specific kind of shape to it, and we can picture that shape as we do the movements. So if you'd like to stand in a good upright position, and take your right hand in your left, the first beginning movement, just a sort of cradling of your hands. Then coming out into this receiving gesture, receiving the new thought. And now we have this gesture of growth that represents the etheric energy, looking up at the flower, forming a good flower with the hands, soft and yet clearly shaped. A wide openness, again this soft, wide open movement, open to the cosmos, open to the light. Now we take the hands together. Again, they come clearly together, but not hard, but just with a gentle clarity. Then that gesture of appreciation with the hands, again forming a clear bowl, but a gentle one. And then the gesture of devotion as we open them out to the sides. So just really feeling and picturing each movement, the right hand in the left. Then the readiness to receive this thought. Now the growth, the etheric energy, the flowing upwards like a flower. Then the wide opening of our horizons, open to the space, open to the cosmos. Then that turning to the center, our very own heart center, our sense of self. Then that gesture of appreciation, a clearly formed bowl with the hands. And that gesture of devotion to life, devotion to the world, as if you're almost drawing back the barrier from around you. The right hand in the left, the beginning. The being ready, then growing like the flower. Then the wide open to the light. Turning to the center. The gesture of appreciation and the devotion. The beginning lies in the readiness to grow like a flower, wide open to the light, turning to the center in appreciation and devotion. And relax your arms. So let's come next to the shoulder stand. And with the shoulder stand, we'll do a little bit of preparation. We'll start just with the arms above the head. Once again, the shoulder stand really lends itself very well to this theme of a clear form and yet with a softness to it, with a kind of natural flowing movement to it. It's a form which, as you know, has its center at the heart in any case. So let's come into it a first time. Just we'll come into the position with the arms above the head. And we'll prepare just by taking our awareness to the heart center. Just simply that the first time. And noticing how we can leave the breath and the body in a fairly soft position so that we're not forcing and straining too much. So you can come into that position when you're ready. The heart is the center. The breath flows freely. The head and the shoulders and arms form a natural base on the ground. And come back down once again. So with the shoulder stand, we need to cultivate a flow of energy, which can rise up from the heart center up into the rest of the body. So we'll do some arm variations that can help develop this energy flow. If we flow with the arms in two opposite directions along the ground, that can help the energy to gather at the heart center and then flow upwards in a counter movement through the spine. So this time we'll come back into the same position to begin with. And we'll take one arm behind the back, the other arm staying above the head. And then we'll picture those arms gliding apart from each other so that from that heart center region on the spine, there becomes a natural tendency to want to grow upwards. And we can change the arms around. And in the same way, just thinking of the arms moving away from each other, we can find that movement upwards through the spine a little bit more. So we'll do that as a second preparation, if you'd like to do that when you're ready. So the arms up above the head, then one arm behind your back, the other arm above your head, and you can grow lengthways into each arm and upwards through the spine as well, so that it brings a kind of centering of energy at the heart center. Then change the arms around. And then bring both arms behind your back and come back down into a sitting position. Another way in which we can encourage this energetic flow upwards through the spine is to take both arms along the ground, like this. So if you're able to clasp your hands together, you can do, otherwise just keep them flat on the floor. And if the arms can flow along the ground, the shoulder blades coming together, it can help the spine find a movement upwards. So we can come up like that, and then eventually you can take your hands to your back, just keeping the head, shoulders and upper arms resting in the ground, and the body finding its natural clear form, not sloppy, but not forced, but in the middle, balance in the middle, a natural, flowing, graceful line in which the legs come together, but in a natural way. You can come into that position when you're ready. First of all, taking the arms along the ground, clasping the fingers if you can. And the arms lengthen. Right, so draw the shoulder blades as close together as possible, and then it helps it can help you to find more length through your arms. And straighten up your back as much as you can from that position, and then eventually take your hands to the middle of your back to support yourself. And picture that movement as it grows upwards from the heart. It flows up through the spine. And that spine gives a dynamic that continues into your legs. So the legs come into a natural togetherness, the feet come into a natural togetherness. And come back down again. So we want to come to a couple of positions now that focus more on the sixth center. The sixth center is also connected with the ability to form a very clear thought. The difference with the heart center is that it gives this lovely softness of balance between softness and form. The sixth center is more connected very much with this aspect of a very clear form and structure. So we're going to do two positions that have that quality to them. And then finally, we'll finish with another heart center position again. So the first one is the Cobra. And with the Cobra, we want to curl the body upwards. So we can start by picturing that the body is going to curl backwards from the head through the upper spine, through the middle of the spine, through the lower back, curling back into a clear form. If you like to come into this position, lying on your front, hands underneath your shoulders, elbows in the air. Make sure that your breath is flowing freely to begin with. And be aware of your forehead. And now picture this curling movement. Picture your spine starting to curl backwards. You can raise the head and then take your awareness down through the different sections of the spine, curling up gracefully up into that upward movement. Breath flowing. And come back down again. So the Cobra, we need to do it a few times to really warm up the different sections of the spine. Let's do a little bit to work this middle section, which we have to use, the sort of solar plexus region. So you can point your hands backwards and you can curl up, opening your chest like that. Breath flowing. And come back down again. We can do the same thing with the hands. If possible, you can clasp your hands behind your back, and then you can push more powerfully backwards with your hands. So when you're ready, pushing back with the arms and opening your chest up. Breath flowing. And come back down again. Let's push back into child's pose. Okay, we can do another preparatory movement for the Cobra. And for this one, you can come up and then take one hand into the middle and the other hand up, and you can really grow upwards. You can try and lift up through your chest and through your upper spine, right the way up, and then you can swap round with the other hand. Okay, so when you're ready, coming up into the Cobra, take one hand into the middle, take the other hand up, and now really grow and stretch right up through, breath flowing, lifting your rib cage, hand down into the middle, and take the other one right up and actively lift and grow, breathing, and hand down again, and then come back down. Push back into child's pose again. So we can come to the Cobra one final time. And this time I want to have a good emphasis on the head, particularly the forehead region where the sixth center is. And the feeling that we have when we work on this with this center is that we are looking down on our body. We have this overseeing kind of quality, as if we're watching our body making the position underneath us. This is our viewing point from up here, the forehead. So it means that the head is relaxed. It's almost as if the head is free from the position. It's not that we come in and we're really, the head is really involved, but rather we can have a sense, how far, the position of your head actually depends on how far into the position you are. So if you're not particularly curled, you can have the head upright and just keep it free and have that feeling that from your forehead you're guiding the position. If you're able to open the chest a little bit more, you can drop the head back but still you can have that sense that you're, with a calm forehead, you're guiding the spine into that curl. You're looking at your own spine and you're picturing that curling movement. So coming to the starting position with your hands under your shoulders and become aware of your forehead. The forehead is the viewing place from which you oversee your body. Now you can curl your way back up into the position. Then finding the right position for your head with a relaxed forehead, start to observe your own spine, shaping your own spine, lengthening through between the shoulder blades so that you push your chest forwards. Calm, overseeing observation from the forehead. The position takes on a clearly structured form. And come back down again. And push back into child's pose. We'll now come up into a sitting position and we'll come to the sitting twist. So you can take your left foot over your right knee. So once again, we want to bring a very clearly structured form into this position. And so I'm going to demonstrate the form first. And the form we're going to make is the shape of a triangle. So the head is the top of the triangle. And in the position, you have a mini triangle there already, but the big triangle, as you can see from this shape, the head, the top of the head is the tip of the triangle, the two arms form the two sides, and the spine forms the central axis up through the middle of the triangle. And this picture we can hold in our, well, it holds just in front of our forehead, as if we've got a little picture sitting there in the space in front of the forehead of this triangular form with the axis through the middle of it. That picture, that clear picture, brings that clear structure into the body in a natural way so that it doesn't become forced, and yet it's still, it's not too soft either, but it has a clarity and a gentleness to it. Come into a good upright spine. Take the arms up. Let the breath flow freely and keep the head just really gentle and relaxed. And now twist to your left. Take the hand behind you and take the right arm over your leg and turn the head to look over your left shoulder. Let the breath flow. So let's take that form of the triangle directly in front of our forehead. Tip of the triangle, the vertical axis, the two sides, and the base. By picturing that shape, by holding that shape in front of our forehead, the body can take on a structure which is clear, has clear contours, without being hard. Straighten up once again. Take the hands down. And change over to the other side. Take your right foot over your left knee. Take the hands around your knee and straighten up your back. Take the arms up above the head, building length into your spine, and twist to your right, taking the right hand down behind you and your left arm right over your leg to take hold of the other foot if you can, or else just take the knee otherwise. Head looking over the right shoulder. Breath flowing. Once again, we can take that mental image of the triangle into the space in front of our forehead. There is the tip of the triangle, the vertical axis down to the base, the two sides, and then the base of the triangle. We hold that mental picture in that space in front of the forehead and allow it to create a clear and yet gentle form in the body. Straightening up once again, take the arms up above the head and take the hands down. So we'll come to another heart center position, and this is the tiptoe pose. And so the tiptoe pose is a balancing position, and it has a graceful rising up of the spine, and then it comes to a balance at the heart. So the legs in the tiptoe pose should be not up too high like this, but they should be in a horizontal position so that the spine can be quite vertical. And I'll demonstrate the position first. What's important with this movement is, once again, this naturalness. It's not a strict, rigid balancing position in which we fix our eyes on a point, but rather the balance comes in a natural way through picturing this graceful rising up of the spine. There is a natural energetic rising up through the spine. We picture that. We picture that graceful flowing movement upwards, that natural lengthening. And then eventually we take the hands to meet at that center of balance at the heart. We can remain aware of that natural upright form of the spine. So do you like to then come into the position on your toes? Just take your knees. So you're on your toes, your knees come into the horizontal. Chest is open. Be aware of your spine. We want to picture a graceful rising up of the spine. When you're ready, flowing up with the arms, growing up higher and higher, streaming upwards through the spine, through the arms, right up to the fingertips. And then take the hands to the heart center. Breath flowing. Keep your awareness on this uprightness of the spine, the graceful uprightness of the spine. Take the hands down and relax again. Let's come up to the standing position and do the triangle. So let's form a good wide base with the legs. And let's become aware of this rib cage area. So we want to make sure that we've got a good active growth with the triangle, but we don't want it to grow out in too hard a way, in too fixed a way, but we can come back to a theme that we've had a little bit through this session, that our movements always lengthen, they always flow, they always have a sense of movement to them, and that can stop this hard rigidity. So the firmness can be in the base. And let's take the arms up in this flowing way so that we can feel, once again, this graceful length come into the spine, as if the energy is flowing right through the spine and continues up through the arms and up through the fingertips. The breath is very free. And take the arms down. Let's stay with this picture of a really lengthening movement. Let's take both arms once again upwards into a really lengthening movement up through the spine and right up through the arms, and then take one arm out to the horizontal and lengthen right out through your side and through that arm and through the hand, and then come back up once again. Breath flowing freely, and then flowing right out to the other side, streaming out through, lengthening, and coming back once again, and take the hands down. The triangle is a surprisingly difficult position for a movement that looks relatively simple. We're basically just stretching from one side to the other. But it's very easy for the body to become fixed because we feel sort of quite vulnerable in that position. And the further over we come, the more we feel unprotected and unsupported. So the thing that can really help is that sense of moving out. If we just tip like this, we're going to end up becoming fixed because we're having to become very stiff in order to support ourselves. But if we can have a sense of momentum and of flow and of streaming out, then it's that dynamic that can support us instead, and we don't need to become rigid in the same way. Let me just show you that idea, that what I'm going to think of is length of movement outwards that never ends. So I'm going to stream out as if I'm growing out and growing out and continuing out farther and farther, and then coming back. And then in a great free movement out to the other side, I can continue to grow out and out and out. So it's not just a sense of getting to a position and that's it, and that we've reached our limit, but that it's always moving, always growing, always flowing from one side to the other. Let's do it 3 times on each side without stopping, so that we could get that sense of movement and length. And perhaps with each time, each repetition, you can increase it a little bit more. So take your arms up, breath flowing, take one arm out to the side, and now grow outwards, thinking of that flow, that movement that continues out through the arm and hand. Then back to the middle again. Both arms, long arms coming up and right the way out to the other side, outwards through the body, through the arm and the fingers. Keep breathing, back again. Sweeping movement up, changing over to the other side like a tree blowing far over in the wind, right the way out, streaming out, back to the middle again. Change the arms around. streaming out in the other direction, right the way through, and back to the middle again, and changing sides again, right the way far out, flowing outwards, and back to the middle again, and then far out to the other side, streaming right through. And come back, take both arms up, take the hands down, and roll down and hang forwards. Come back up to a standing position and close your legs. We started with the circle of the heart, and I'd like to finish with a similar circle called the circle of the sun. It's a bigger circle because we're in a standing position. We've just done the triangle and we've experienced this vast opening of space around us. So the circle will feel a lot bigger this time. But I'd like to have a similar idea that if we have a very clear mental picture of our circle, it can be well structured and yet soft at the same time. So let's now picture a great big circle in the space right in front of us. Let's picture a circle there. Bring it to life in a very clear way. And then with a gentle movement of your hands, you can take your arms around the edge of this vast circle, the circle of the sun. There's a clarity and yet a softness to it. And relax your arms by your sides. Let the breath flow. And we'll finish our session there.